What's up, guys? I had a buddy that sold me this truck. He didn't want to deal with the exhaust manifolds, so I don't fault him for that. He went to like probably 4 or 5 different shops. They all turned him away. They basically said, we don't want to deal with this trouble. Thing is, exhaust manifolds, you know, you see a lot of videos online where guys are doing them and they look easy. They're not easy. I'll make no pretense that this is an easy job. I'm not gonna make this thing look like a fairy tale. Everything works perfect. You might learn just how to do it, and I'll try to have chapters for that, but I'm also gonna show you every little step along the way. So let's get started. You can't always use non-destructive methods. Somebody put a big washer and a bolt here, and it must have had a nut in the back. Yeah, see? It was a bolt and a nut, and then the nut was spinning, and it was like a custom hardware setup. I could do a better job than that. I would just tap it. But you're gonna have a couple screws around this area. Some of them are usually gonna be customized or damaged, or the nut that there's a nut that mounts to the back of the shroud, and then you're gonna have one under here usually, and that's pretty important. You wanna make sure you have that when you put it back together. And then basically the whole idea is this shroud goes down that way to come out of this lip. And once the shroud goes that way, you can kind of bend it in half and compress it. Others may disagree and have a better way, but I'm gonna remove this tube right here. That's the oil cooler, and it's got 3 bolts down below, which are kind of hard to show you, but I'll show you. And then there's 2 bolts over here that you can see, and then once that tube is gone, I'll have access to cut the bolts from underneath on this exhaust manifold. Unplugging this, it's the heater, it's the block heater. You only need to drain some fluid out of the radiator because of the cooler coming off, so if you can figure out a way to do this without taking the oil cooler off, you don't need to drain the radiator. So I've just broken that bolt loose, and now I have antifreeze coming down. Get this other side undone. There's one more bolt. That's a nice muddy mixture. I like that. Yummy. Here's the beast. Comes out at the fuel filter end towards the back of the truck. have one turning. That's good. Another. I realize you guys can't see anything I'm doing, so basically I decided to cut the heads off of these with my 4.5 inch grinder because it's got power. So it's faster to cut through the head of these with the electric than it is to try to go around the back with the smaller air-powered unit. I actually, let's see, so this one's harder to get to. I had better luck with this bolt in the past. I was able to get that bolt off without heat, but it's reduced down because of the corrosion down below a 12 millimeter and it won't even grab. So this one I already cut. It didn't fall off, but I cut it at an angle. I was able to get these front bolts loosened up by hand. So I'll be unscrewing, let's see. But that one, and that one I can get out just by unscrewing them. This one, I already cut the 2 bolts that go to the up pipe there, so they're free. That top one might need to be popped off with a pry bar, but it's basically cut. 5 bolts to get out. There's the manifold with these bolts seized inside there. That's why you can't turn these. Tool that you want is going to be some version of this. You want to have a disc that's not too big. The ideal tool is actually going to be this style of tool because you see how it has a smaller profile. So this one, there's simply not enough room inside there to go up this way and reach those, because when you're going like this, trying to cut those bolts, this whole body of this tool is crashing into the frame and the suspension and the wires and stuff. You need the mandrel, one of these, and you need the proper size, a small cutter wheel like this, which is the one I ended up using to get some of those. And this is how you get good access, is by having a couple of these different air tools. These bolts are so corroded, I don't think there's any hope for trying to turn them. So I'm just going to cut all of them. And I have to avoid the dipstick tube. I just replaced it. And a couple wires. And then there's a that one line right there. This line, that's the exhaust back pressure. I needed to move the dipstick tube out of the way to make my cuts, and the nut on here goes over a stud and it was twisting the dipstick tube, so I actually damaged it. So just be careful if you guys are going to undo this. Be careful not to damage your dipstick tube like I did. And once that was out of the way, it was easier to get to those 2 bolts. While that penetrating oil is soaking in on these ones, I'm going to work on the top side of the truck. Needs the up pipes done. If you're doing the exhaust manifolds, I think you should probably do the up pipes, my opinion, and the Y pipe. Part of the problem that happens with exhaust leaks is between the up pipe and the exhaust manifold. So if you take care of both, you can guarantee a good seal. Okay, 8 mil, get this off. That's the spider. Now, to help you see this, there's these little style clamps right here, band clamps. And these are on the top and bottom of each of these rubbers. And so this rubber I just didn't have access because the last guy had it positioned a little funny. Green hose, air intake. It's a miracle. I can't believe it. Can't show you me turning it, but there's a bolt there and then one behind it. And it's actually turning. Okay, so it's like the Wild West out here when it comes to taking off this clamp on the Y pipe. So I wish you guys the best of luck figuring it out. It's hard and you have to hit it with something to break it free. Right, what you guys missed is that clamp back there that goes to the Y pipe was stuck onto the Y pipe circle and the turbo, and I couldn't get it off. So I had to keep the turbo bolted down. And then I took like kind of one of these and I struck in onto that clamp until it started to open up some. And then I took a long one. Anyway, it was a long version of this. And I went in from over there and I hit the Y pipe and I shook it free. And then once the Y pipe was off the turbo, I was able to unbolt the turbo and take it out. And it just rolls out through the center right here. You just have to kind of move this pipe out of your way. Clamp. Yeah, buddy. There's the Y pipe. Oh, wow. This thing just came off both. Wow, that just came right off. Here's a pipe. See? Here's the other one. Things don't usually work out quite this way. Usually, these are a little bit more trouble to get. Look at it. this one bolt kept breaking off. It had rusted to where it was really thin and deteriorated, and welding a nut to it was not sufficient. I had to weld a washer to it, and then I welded a nut to the washer, and that always seems to work when the plain nut option does not work. Once you've seen me tap one of these, you've seen them all, guys, so I'll just show you this one. I won't be able to show you guys everything with this install. It's almost impossible to install it even without the camera going. Here's a tip for you guys. Make sure these bolts go out from the inside of the truck. Don't put, because the head of the bolt has to be small on the back side to be able to get a wrench around it. Otherwise, you've got no way to hold it while you're tightening the nut, basically. The best way to do this is to attach the S-curved pipe to the Y pipe and then insert, which is on the passenger side. And then the driver's side, which is the one I'm putting in now, you actually slide that down in there and attach it to the Y pipe. You can actually get to these bolts. The bolts on the passenger side are really under there, and they're not only hard to access from below, but they're also hard to access from above. These pipes can be tightened down to the Y pipe, but you just don't want to be premature with it, because the Y pipe is the hardest part to attach to the turbo, other than the main exhaust, which can be a little challenging. All right, I can't show you the work, but I can show you what I'm about to do. Just put my bolts to connect this flange while everything is still loose. See, the exhaust manifold is free, the up pipe is free, and then the first thing to get locked in is going to be the turbo and the Y pipe. So I just took a nickel rod, just welded this open. This flapper here is the exhaust back pressure valve that's supposed to help the engine heat up faster. I actually cut the control arm off the controller pedestal, and later I'll probably just remove that pedestal and put a delete pedestal, but they're like $200. So just make sure this area is cleaned up so it can mate well against the Y pipe. It's not a bad time to take out the pedestal O-rings, you know. These feel pretty good. I'm gonna replace just these. There's two sets of this, because one set goes under the pedestal and one set goes on top. I am not doing the bottom ones. And then there's this big O-ring that goes, I'll show you, goes in this mouth right here. There you go. Not much I can show you here, but the two rings have to be up against each other this way from the Y pipe and the turbo. And then the V-band clamp goes over. It's like this wide, and you can feel when those two faces are together. And then the V-band clamp can it's got spring force to it, so once you get it over both of them, you can usually spin it around this way, and that's how you know you've actually grabbed both, because then it'll smoothly turn, and you can check that those aren't like gapped out. You know, if you're feeling them and they're together, then you know it's mounted together. And to help me, I take out this bolt, the T-bolt and the nut, which is a kind of a lock retaining nut type. This clamp is hard to get on because you have to lift the exhaust and get the exhaust lined up. I had my wife lift it, and then we used a pry bar to push it towards the right or towards the driver's side so it could mate properly. And then I got the clamp on. You need 2 hands to get that little T-bar and that nut on. And then I torqued down the turbo bolts, but I'm not gonna install any of this other stuff until I know that the up pipes are locked in tight. You need a big long bar. This bar has a wobble tip, which makes it a lot more expensive. That's how you get the up pipe. There we barely have visibility of the up pipe, one of the bolts. So we gotta tighten those right up to that bolt. Again, I don't think you can do it without the wobble. You can probably do like a wobble, like a U-joint type socket. The up pipe is solid now, it doesn't move much. Alright guys, sorry I couldn't show you that. It's too hard to video while working. I wanted these bolts on this flange to be tightened part of the way before I did the exhaust manifold, because I thought it would improve the fit. So I got them in there part way, and then I realized like it's got angular play, like you can move it around a little bit. So I loosened them back up, and then I torqued, or I got these manifold bolts in basically to where it wasn't moving, and then I tightened that down all the way. And then I torqued the manifold bolts last. But that thing is tighter than you can imagine. But it needs to be because it actually deforms and forms to the mating part. But just remember, put these nuts out, because if you put the bolt has this tiny head because it needs clearance for a small wrench to go in the back. So you need the bolt has to come out from the back. There. Sorry, I simply couldn't show you the install on this oil cooler, guys. It's too hard of a job. You have to get under the truck. You need to have the oil filter off to properly get this thing in, because otherwise it basically can't rotate this way to position itself to slide through this space. So this end has 2 bolts, this end has 3 bolts, and once you get it in, you have to position your gasket behind it. And that's quite tough because you have to not only hold it up, you also have to position a gasket and insert a bolt, and then you have to move this thing around while you're getting the bolt started. So this is a good part to have a buddy for sure. Yep, I got it in. Good luck getting that in yourself. So that's it, guys. Started the truck up and I had good boost once again. Exhaust leaks were gone. The truck had great power going down the road. I actually forgot to put my oil filter on initially, and I started the truck, it started, and then it shut right off again because this engine won't work without oil. It just shuts down. So it's a fail-safe in a way, but for me it ended up where I put the filter on and then I ran the truck, but I didn't realize I was low oil, and with the oil being low, I think it got bubbles in the injection system. It was hard to run the next day. I needed ether to start it. And I was doing all this diagnostic work trying to figure out what was wrong with it, and it turned out it was just the fact that I had ran it with basically low oil, so there was a lot of air bubbles in the HUI system. But truck has great power, runs awesome. You'll see a huge difference in your truck when you do this project. It's definitely worth the trouble. You are going to feel some hurt. My hands hurt a lot right now. They're all cut up and my joints hurt, but that's just what you get when you work out in the cold, work on metal and stuff in the winter time. But all in all, I say this is a great job for
anybody to do as long as you've got like good tools in your shop. It's not for somebody that just has basic hand tools. You're gonna need a wire feed welder, you're gonna need air compressor, you're gonna need brake cleaner, you're gonna need WD-40, you're gonna need penetrating, you're gonna need a tap, you're gonna need electric ratchet, you're gonna need, well, if you don't have electric ratchet, you're gonna take a lot longer on this job. You're gonna need a torque wrench, you're gonna need a buddy, you're gonna need a jack, you're gonna need a drill, you know, a device that basically when you take those shrouds out around the wheels, those shrouds have all different types of hardware on them. So a lot of times when you remove the hardware from that, whatever it was screwed into breaks or disappears. Sometimes there's like 3 or 4 different types of hardware that hold those shrouds on. So when I put the shrouds back on, I always end up with a bunch of Phillips heads stuck in there, and you can just like kind of self-tap a Phillips head right through that plastic material. And so you just go in the existent holes around the fender well there. But the plastic poppers, you know, good luck ever figuring out where those are supposed to go back to. And likewise, trying to figure out where the bolts go. When you put that shroud back in, every bolt seems like it's always in a different position after you put it back up in there. So, you know, be careful. Don't break it. You know, don't break anything that's in there. You can damage those ABS wires, and you don't want to damage ABS wires because then, you know, you might need to get a wheel bearing. Don't forget, you know, close the drain cock on the radiator before you add your radiator fluid. I started pouring my coolant back into the coolant system, and then it was like pouring out on the ground because I didn't have my drain cock closed back up. So I had to run down there fast and tighten it up. So there's a lot of little incidents like that happen on this. Lining up the exhaust with the turbo is not the easiest thing. Lining up the Y pipe to the turbo, to the back of the turbo, is not easy if you have those down up pipes already attached to the exhaust manifolds. I learned that first time I did this job. You keep those bolts all loose, exhaust manifolds and then exhaust manifold to up pipe, loose, just finger tight basically. Then up top you can move around that Y pipe and it helps you line it up better to the turbo, because that turbo is exact positioning, super exact. The only thing that really has any play in it or flexibility is actually the up pipes. That's why they make them baffled, because a lot of times people would have problems with the stock ones. They're non-baffled, and so they're not flexible at all. And they would get cracks in them, or they would just get out of positioning to where they actually didn't seal anymore. So that's why everything now is going over to a baffled up pipe. On even like the basic Dorman products have a baffled up pipe. And they work great too. They work awesome. They absorb the vibration. They don't get cracks in them and stuff. Yeah, just be slow, be steady on this job. Getting frustrated is not a good way to go. You want to have some cardboard to lay on so that you can, when you get under the truck, if there's like oil and debris and gravel and stuff, at least you'll have something to slide in and out on. That's not just torture and getting you all disgusting and filthy, because you're already going to be filthy to begin with. But yeah, don't be afraid to go out and buy the tools that you need for this job. Just tell your wife or whoever's involved, hey, you need these tools. I mean, you know, you basically can't do this job. Like, a lot of shops won't even take on an exhaust manifold job like this, and so you're stuck doing it yourself at home. And it is possible. You can do it. You got to have drive, you got to have determination, and you got to have tools, but you can do it. So I wish you guys all the best of luck and have a great day. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.